Hi, this is David Harris, President of Union College, and I'm joined today by Matt Malatesta, VP for Admissions, Financial Aid, and Enrollment. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here.
So, as you all know, and everyone knows by this point, due to the coronavirus pandemic, we had to move to off-campus education for spring term, and as a result, we removed room and board from bills. We received a lot of questions about how this decision affects the bills that students on need-based financial aid are receiving, and I thank you for taking a few minutes to help us understand.
Yeah, happy to do so.
So, Matt, one of the things that's challenging is, I've worked you worked literally in financial aid, had financial aid reporting to me. It's pretty tricky to understand, even people in higher ed. So can you help us understand what are the impacts of this decision for people on need-based financial aid?
Yeah, absolutely. It is complicated because there's a couple of factors going on. One is the difference kind of between directly billed costs and costs that we know families are accruing as a result of education, i.e. buying books and the like. So, but the ultimate equation is fairly simple in terms of what Union's commitment is. Union's lucky to be one of roughly 5% of the colleges and universities in the nation that have the commitment to meet the full financial need of all the students at the college. And basically what it is, it's a function of the cost of attendance of attending Union minus the expected family contribution. And we rely on institutionally and federal guidelines to help us get at various families' ability to contribute. And it's the cost of attendance of Union minus that family contribution is what nets out in terms of what their financial need would be. And then we meet that need by a combination of factors. We first factor in the maximum federal direct loan that's available to them. Next, we factor in a work-study opportunity on campus for those students. And then lastly, it's Union College Scholarship. And the average need-based scholarship at Union this year is around $39,000. So they can be very significant resources, some students more than that, some students less than that. But it's the combination of those factors that play into this as it happens. Now, what's added complexity here is normally what will happen is we'll have similar charges from term to term to term. And what's happened this year is between the winter term and the spring term, the costs have come down because of the removal of room and board in the equation. At the same time, we know there are some additional expenses that family needs to take on with this virtual education. So what this is a function of the changing equation, the cost of attendance coming down, not coming down dollar for dollar, again, because while room and board has been removed from the bill, we know there are some commuting type expenses that are going to be taken on by family. And so we factor that in. And the constant in the equation, though, is the family contribution, because our need-based financial aid is a subsidy to make up the difference between what a family can afford and what we cost. And it's those shifting things that coupled together is what leads to some complexity.
Excellent. So thanks. And just summarizing then, so it's not the case that the union part, the aid, is a percentage of the total cost. It's not a fixed part. You're saying it fills the gap.
You got
so
it.
As the gap gets smaller, the amount that's being filled also gets smaller.
You got exactly right.
So any other changes that students on need-based financial aid would be seeing on their bills for this term?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that they won't see is that expectation of what these, our expectation of what some of those extra costs that are being taken on. That shows up in what we're assuming and building into the formula. But the direct cost that students who have been working in the work-study program will see is we don't expect them to be working remotely. What we have done is we've passed that on as a grant. So instead of what happens most terms is they earn that as a paycheck as the term goes along. That never gets directly assigned to their bill. They get it as a paycheck and they can spend that as they choose to spend. What we're doing this term is we are passing on students, again, for students who are working through the work-study program, we're passing on the portion of their work-study as a direct grant to their bill. up to their total award for the year.
Great. So they're not losing that work study opportunity. It becomes a grant. We're making sure keeping them whole, as you say, to account for the fact there are expenses they're still going to have, even when they're at home, right. Books and other things. So the bottom line from this is, as we heard from some students say, wait a second. So I have a friend who receives no need-based financial aid. And what their out-of-pocket is, what they see on their bill they have to pay, it's going down faster than mine is going down. And so just want to put these things together and just explain that a little.
Yeah. So again, it's ultimately the gap between what a family can pay and the cost of attendance. And that gap has decreased. And again, it's not dollar for dollar. There's significant resources put in place to help with some of these additional costs that are being taken on. But that is where the shrinking is. It's
right.
not... That's where the difference is.
Gotcha. And the full pay, it does come down the whole amount because there's no gap that's being filled. They're paying the whole thing.
They're paying the whole thing. There is no subsidy from the college.
Right. Correct. For full pays. Great. So that's really helpful. I wonder just to maybe make sure people are understanding and we're being as clear as possible. Can you show us an example for a hypothetical student, what they might see?
Sure. Yeah, happy to do so. So basically I've tried to lay out what the spring was going to look like for, this is just kind of a one student, not an actual student, but one example of there's 4 columns, and the second column from the left is what the situation would look like if they were in residence, if we were one of our quote unquote normal terms. And then the column all the way on the right is what's going on now that we're online. And as I've discussed, the cost of attendance has come down. And it's come down because of the removal of room and board, but it hasn't come down all that way because of these virtual commuting expenses that we expect people to take on. So you see, basically, the cost of attendance for the term was factored in at roughly $25,000, now factored in at roughly $21,000. But again, the constant here is in the next row down, which is the expected family contribution, $5,000. That's the constant in this equation. Because the need is the cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution. So you see that the need for the student during a residential term, again, this is the same student, the need in a residential term would be $19,470. The need during an online term is $16,106. And again, the way we meet that need is a combination of loan, work study, and union scholarship. So the student on the left would have an roughly $1,800 direct loan for the one-term portion of their loan, plus $667 that they could earn in work study. And that would be a paycheck they would get. That would not go directly to the bill. And then the difference there is $16,970. You add those 3 things together, which totals the total financial aid of $19,470. For the new example, all the way to the right, the need is $16,106. And what's happening for that is the loan stays the same. The work study, we thought the complexity of working remotely would be more challenging. So for students who had been working, we simply added that to their Union College scholarship. And so the scholarship would be $14,273. So $14,273 plus the $1,833 is $16,106. So again, our commitment to meeting full need has not changed a bit. We are really here to help families afford this place. But the subsidy has changed a bit with the cost coming down.
Excellent. That's helpful. Thanks. So, Matt, so hopefully that helps folks understand this difficult to understand world of need-based financial aid and how the calculations work. If there are additional questions people have around financial aid,
yeah, a couple things. So first of all, the aid office is available every day, Monday through Friday, to answer your questions. We are answering phones, so even though we are not in the physical office, we have a way to get to our phones, and we also have email. It's FinAid at union.edu, FINAID. The phone number is 518-388-6123. Now, our commitment has all along been to meet the full need of families. And we know that with this pandemic, some people's financial situations are changing. And just as we always have, we will be responsive to changes in families' individual circumstances. And so people should feel free to communicate with their financial aid officer to explore changes in their own circumstances as it goes.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your help. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Great. Happy to be here.
All right. Take care.